Hey, today we have a special guest, Kevin Benedict. So let's start with a simple question. Could you shortly, Kevin, introduce yourself? What's your background?
Yes, well, thank you for having me on your program. And my background is I've been in technology for over 32 years. And especially since the last decade of my career, the last 10 years or so, I've been focused on studying and research and producing reports on where it looks like how emerging technologies are maturing, what other technologies are coming down, where do companies need to be looking to capture competitive advantages. So writing these kinds of white papers and research reports and then sharing that information both with industries and with individual clients.
Sounds really good.
Sounds very good. Could you tell us something about your organization where you're working at the moment?
Absolutely. So I'm working as a principal analyst for the Center for Digital Intelligence. And again, we're assisting companies with understanding the impact of emerging technologies and how they can prepare their own organizations to capture competitive advantages as a result of those.
Yeah, sounds good. So if we go to today's topic, so could you tell us how you see current situation where the companies are at the moment? So how do you see the maturity of companies? What are they are struggling?
Well, there's so much changing. It's really the volume of change out there, which is impacting a lot of companies. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is, again, just the velocity, amount of new technology coming out of company. And it's not just kind of, it's not just technology that they can make small changes and absorb. It's technology, it's digital technology, which is really demanding a change in their core business. And that just takes so much work. So I really feel sorry for many kind of CTOs and IT organizations because it's exhausting. It really is, because in order for them to get in front of the next tech wave, so much has to happen, and often the business is not prepared to make that kind of investment. So right now, we're seeing just an incredible pace of change that customers, through digital interactions, they're just changing their behavior so quickly. They want different things. You see industries like the retail industry is changing dramatically, and so many retail chains in the North America here have collapsed this year and went into bankruptcy. They just could not keep up with the pace of change. So it's a real struggle to not only know what technology is coming, but able to accelerate the rate of change within your own organization to deal with it.
Yeah. So this is exactly the same that we have seen when we have discussed with top management of different organizations in different industries. So there is companies that are actually quite mature in digital already, but many are struggling, like you said. But if we look at these companies who has already done this kind of a digital transformation or digital business transformation, how do you see how they have organized themselves? Do they have some sort of a new operating model or governance model, or how they are actually working now after this big change?
Yeah, it's a good question. But I think if you really look at the champions out there, those are actually the companies that have almost innovated and created that technology or that new business process. If we look at here in North America, and actually in many places, what Amazon has done, Amazon wasn't reacting to a market that was happening. They made the change happen. So they were the ones, in fact, innovating, creating the future. And I think that's a really important concept there, because you have digital leaders and you have digital laggers, and then all those in between. And in all the research that I've been involved in over the last few months here, you really find out that the digital leaders, they have so many advantages, because not only are they creating new processes, embracing new technologies, they're the first to capture competitive innovations, competitive advantages. They're the market makers, if you would. And they're both meeting with success, and they're also finding out what doesn't work before everybody else does. But if you're a laggard, by the time you start reading all the results that the leaders have experienced, it's almost too late. You're never going to be able to catch up. And what we found out, it's really a mindset of innovation. It's a mindset of courage, the ability to take risk, and the ability to go out there and really try to be a market maker and use new technology in unique ways. And I'm just going to, at the risk of repeating myself again, if you wait and take the safe path and be conservative with all your changes, there's no way you can just put your foot on the pedal and accelerate and catch up. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you see those digital leaders choosing what to do? How do they focus? Because if we look at these large companies, they are going to so many directions.
Oh, absolutely. And, there really is a need to have visionaries. And, that might sound trite or something, but if you look at the companies that are out there and are exceeding, you have the ride sharing business and the different companies in ride sharing, the Ubers and the Lyfts and others out there. These guys didn't wait for somebody else to completely create that market. They went out there and just started doing that. And, there has to be, again, the ability to take that risk. But in addition to simply having the courage and ability to take that risk in the leadership, and, I guess it's worth actually calling that point out. Leadership is incredibly important, because the leader has to say, I'm taking a look at, I'm bringing in the brightest minds to look at the direction of all the technology. I'm bringing in every resource I can to look at how this is going to change our industry, our market, and our own competitive environment. And they're looking to do things nobody else has. Yeah. So they're investing early in new technologies. So that doesn't mean they're sitting back again and letting everybody else do it. No, there's a number of different paths to success there. Some companies choose to invest in startups that are already doing it. So they want to come in there with their investment funds, pick the best of each of these kind of emerging areas, invest in them, put their own key people on the board and as advisors, and really watch how things are evolving, but not necessarily bringing that in-house. But if they really like how things mature, they can always step up and buy or acquire that company, because they have real experience already with that company. Others decide to put in really an innovation platform internally, where they say, you know what, let's take the brightest ideas across the spectrum of our company. Let's develop a platform of innovation that allows everybody to submit their ideas. Let's put together some means in which to vet those ideas, pick the very best, do an internal funding, help build those internally as kind of innovation or labs internally, and see which ones are successful internally. And the ones that aren't successful, write them off, start fresh, do something else. But the ones that are, you can either keep them internally or spin them off as their own startup and invest in that way. But there has to be the ability to put, as we say, our foot in the water and really understand how things are going. When we might not be able to do that properly internally, there needs to be a way of really embracing those proof of concepts, those startups, and really understanding what works and what doesn't work, and then bringing that in early enough to matter. And that's one of those key phrases. you have to act strategic enough to matter. If you don't, if you're just going to be conservative and take those little steps and follow everyone else, what's going to happen, you'll come over that hill and you're going to be so far behind, you'll just never be able to catch up.
Yeah. It's. I fully agree. It's like you need to make bold, risky moves. But as we all know, is it like 60 to 80% of big changes fail? And now we are entering this new era, like you mentioned. You have to have the pedal to the pedal all the time, so you have to constantly change. The organization must constantly change, and people and leaders, they need to create new vision almost every day. So do you have any insight or how these companies actually, like Amazon, it's famous of their own culture. They have this kind of a fail fast culture. We all know what it means. But do you have any other examples or insights how they keep up with this innovative mindset every day, not only today?
Absolutely. And it really is, there's a concept that I write a lot about this year. One is the accelerating pace of change. And, all of us humans, we're born into a biological, a kind of a human time frame that's dictated by the rotation of the sun, by our biological needs to replenish, to rest, our emotional health. We need downtime. We need to be able to sleep. So we're working on these 24-hour clocks, right?
Yeah.
But in a digital world, the speed of everything is accelerating so quickly that it's moving beyond the capability of human time or biological time into what we call digital time. And that's an environment where you can have automatic responses to your queries on websites 24 hours a day. And it's because of automation being built into websites, into transactional processes, into catalogs online, into checkout. So you can enter your credit card and do a digital transaction. You can buy something, you can get confirmation that it's shipping, you can get a tracking number, and all of that happens with no humans involved. Why? That needs to happen so much faster than a human could do it. So now we've moved from a biological or human time into the speed of real time or digital time. But innovative companies recognize that likewise, that's not good enough, because moving forward, more and more of our competitive advantages will not just be in real-time digital time, but will be in predictive future time. Yeah. And companies that learn to be able to support future time and capture the value of supporting future time are going to win. And if companies aren't able to do that, they're going to lose. And let me explain what that means. It's really predictive analytics. It's understanding what you want before you want it. It's understanding that as soon as you come to the website, we already know who you are, what your preferences are, what you've been doing, and what we think you're looking for now. So we did that in advance. That's future time. Yeah. And we're capturing all that future time work, but we're bringing it back to the real-time interaction we're having with you right now. And that gives incredible value. Companies have to recognize those time frames, and they have to prepare for it. And they have to make those technological investments right now. So not only do they have to be brave, they have to recognize those macro trends, what's actually happening to all of us in this world of digital transformation. And how do you really understand what's happening? Is that you're collecting enough of the right kind of data from your customers so that you know, by looking at the data, the changing behaviors of your customers as they are happening. And you're able to do your best to stay aligned with the pace of change they're involved in. And that's using data, that data analytics, that's building the right algorithms and using artificial intelligence and machine learning to really capture the changes in transactions and preferences and all that. And then actually having an enterprise behind you that is digitally transformed and is agile enough now to actually react to the changing data that we're capturing.
Yeah. One thing that you have been writing about is this hyper transformation. Could you tell us more about it? What is it?
Oh, absolutely. So we did over 2,000 executives across 18 countries, and we looked at the trends that we could see in that data, the results of all the research that we did. And we're able to really recognize kind of 3 periods within 2016 through 2025. We could recognize 3 time periods where different behaviors being reflected in the data. And what it really tells us is that the first phase, and this is from work that we did at Cognizant in the Center for the Future of Work, we could see that there was this age of disruptive technology where you had social, mobile, analytics, cloud, you had Internet of Things, you had cybersecurity issues, and these kinds of things were really disruptive and started changing the way commerce is done. You and I are here on video, we're collaborating using technology over the internet. All of this emerged during that time of disruptive technology. Well, the next phase, which is really, and that kind of worked its way up, let's say through 2000, 2010, if we would even. And then we saw this age of disruptive technology from about 2010 through 2016. But the next age, which is really the one we're in right now, which runs through 2020, we saw an immense jump in the impact of all of these emerging technologies. You could see that everybody was starting to do proof of concepts. The graphs were showing kind of a gentle increase in the importance of these technologies. But between 2016 and 2020, they spiked right straight up in business importance. And that's what we're seeing in retail. If you can't already support the mobile interactions, the mobile commerce, the online and digital commerce, with predictive analytics and preferences and loyalty programs built in, if you're not already supporting that environment, you've missed it. You've missed it. And so that's the age of hyper digital transformation, 2016 through 2020, where immense amount of importance and business models, everything changes because of technology. But then we see a more gentle, beyond 2020 through 2025, companies are slowing down the pace. Now, they're continuing to adopt, and the business impact of these digital technologies continues to climb, so it never stops climbing. But you see the pace of it slows down a little bit when just every enterprise out there is saying, how do we absorb the volume of change? Because we're going to have to change our CRMs and our ERPs and our path to purchase journey understanding of our clients. We're going to have to change all of our analytics to better understand and predict changing behaviors. We have to digitize our entire analog supply chain process so we can actually be agile enough to work in this new world. So there's going to be a lot of pain in that time. There's also at the same time a huge amount of adoption into automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Companies are going to go, wow, man, what do I do? What's this new world of business look like? So we see that happening after that. So those 3 time periods, the behavior that the 2,000 executives that we interviewed said they really saw 3 different areas where the behavior was going to be different. And that's what I meant by hyper digital transformation. The time we're in now up to 2020.
Yeah, it's exactly, this is the interesting period. Okay, it has been interesting for a couple of years already now, but we call this coming years. It could be called a digital chaos, because for leaders there is so many different things ongoing. Like you mentioned, there is small CRM projects, but in the same time there is innovators and digital disruptors. So there is so many things both in there that you have to come up with. But how do you see, because there has been this role, for example, this chief digital officer, there has been nominated so many of those. It's not so hype anymore. There is CTOs, CIOs, so who should actually be in the organization? Who's the person, or what kind of a role should take care of this kind of a new era we are stepping in?
Yeah, there needs to be a different kind of organizational chart, and there's a number of reasons for that. Every layer that's introduced between the workers on the front line and senior management, every layer there is an opportunity for delayed decision making. Mm-hmm. You're going to see just a lot of reorganization in a company based on adoption of automated and artificial intelligence, where more and more of the kind of mundane routine and rule-based processes can be codified, and software robots can take care of that, make those decisions, approve those expense reports, approve travel, all of that based on rules. So you're going to see all kinds of the middle tier of operations is going to start being automated. So that's going to change the way humans interact with automation, artificial intelligence, and that's going to be a learning process. Everyone's going to have to find out, where do humans and where do managers and where do my experts fit? How can they be supported so that their productivity skyrockets because they're being augmented that really didn't require their skills. It just required them to review rules and policies. All of that, if you take that away, how does that free up your team then to focus on business building, customer alignment, and innovation? Mm-hmm. So if you look at that and say, okay, my new business is really going to be about those three areas, I need to reorganize so I'm always innovating. I'm always watching where customers are moving so I can quickly align the organization. You're going to have people that look at the organization and say any friction in the organization that slows down our ability to respond needs to be eliminated. So you're going to have teams that just look at removing friction so you can be more agile. Teams looking at how better to be augmented, where every worker can be augmented and supported by artificial intelligence. So you can see how the entire focus changes. Yeah. But again, it's all driven on data. So you need to have all the data unless you're dead before you start. You need to be able to get all the right kind of data flowing in. It's the lifeblood of an organization moving forward. You need to be able to look at all that data, understand what it means, put the right algorithms in place based on rules, policies, and where you want to go. And you also need to change your philosophy. I write a lot about the need for organizations to have a doctrine. And the doctrine is, kind of like a mission statement, but it's even more. It's like, what do you think what do you need to look like in order to succeed in this digital era? And that paragraph needs to be a guiding paragraph that says, here's what we need to be like and do and how we react going forward. That's our doctrine. Yeah. Because right now, when I'm sitting down with large enterprises and large clients, and we ask a room full of people what digital transformation means to their organization, it means something different to every business group in the room. Yeah. So everybody's kind of going different directions, and they all think that's digital transformation. They need a guiding doctrine that everybody can say, you know what, if our job is to invest and create budgets and priorities based upon a guiding principle, it needs to be that doctrine. Because once we have that digital transformation doctrine up here in the sky, then we can create strategies that align with that. And the tactics we use to be successful in the field can be aligned with the right strategies, all aligned with the right doctrine that the company has embraced. That needs to be there as well.
Yeah. One thing that we found out when we were interviewing leaders last year was that they all said that the easy part was technology. So in the transformation, technology was the easy part, and hard part was the culture. So changing the mindset and thinking in the organization. What do you think about this?
Oh, absolutely. If I can give an analogy, you can have two different groups of people both sitting in chairs, but one is rowing a boat and the other sitting on the shoreline watching. What you need that so many people have been used to in their career, sitting on the sideline in a chair as a spectator. They come every day and they sit in their chair and they do what they're supposed to, but it's not moving anywhere. And they're not changing their behaviors. They're not learning new things. They're just coming and wanting to do the same thing every day, sit in the chair. Now, the other group recognizes that everything has to move every day. You can't sit in one spot ever. So you come out and you climb in that rowing boat, and the entire rowing crew works together to move the ship, and they recognize, now this is my career, this is my job. Every day I need to be moving forward. My ship, my boat, my, what I'm in needs to be moving every day unless we're losing the race. It's a mindset. And that's something I write a lot about too. It's the digital mindset that recognizes that if there was a time in the past when you could start your career and finish your career and sit in the same chair and never change, what you learned in high school is this all you needed to do to know until the day you retire. Those times are far gone. Every person needs to be moving quickly. Every person needs to be on a lifelong learning process. And anybody that stops learning on that process is going to fall behind. Anybody that thinks they don't need to educate themselves and get as much as they can out of education is going to struggle. So you can see here that's the whole mindset of your employees. Nobody must think they can come and sit in the same chair and not grow and not move. Everything has to move. Why? Because we're not competing with the company down the street. We're competing globally. And if we aren't moving and we aren't innovating, and if we aren't in the lead, then we're going to be struggling against more nimble global competitors.
Yeah. Something that people keep asking me is that is there a need for top management to understand technology? So is it so that everyone in the top management needs to understand technology, or is it enough someone to be like general manager with not technology understanding?
Yeah, if you go back and look at somebody 20 years ago that got an MBA, of business 20 years ago are no longer valid. So it means that every leader out there needs to be very disciplined and have a formal process of educating not only themselves, but their board of directors as well. Mm-hmm. Because you can't have a bunch of 20, 30, and 40-year-old innovators running a company and have 75-year-old directors trying to make the key decisions for the company, unless they also understand where technology is, what the capabilities are, and what it means to the success of the company. So it's one thing so I did a survey this year where I asked about 100 executives, how do they go about this self-educating? Is it something that the company sponsors and brings in as a formal leadership educational process? Or is this something that's left up to them to do on their own time in the evenings and weekends? 80% said it's up to them to do it on their own time in the evenings or on the weekends. There's no formal process within the company for leadership or employees to be kept up to speed on the impact of emerging technologies. And that's not going to cut it going forward. Every company needs to recognize that every single contributor in the company has to be on a path to growth, has to be recognizing the changes and how every part of the business will be impacted from emerging technologies. And they need to have some basic understandings of how the interconnection of all these innovations, how they will impact every part of the business and the business of the competitors. Leaders need to have that. So, there's the 20% that we're on formal plans. A lot of these guys with 15 minutes every single week, they would have an expert join their leadership call and unveil, if you would, and educate the leadership on emerging technologies and new kinds of processes, new kinds of business models. So this was a formal process. Not only that, a lot of these guys will have quarterly offsite meetings where they bring in industry experts, innovation experts, startup companies that are doing things that nobody else has, bring them in and have them do a presentation to the leadership, just to make sure that the leadership is staying current with all this. Again, it is far too important for the success of the company and for the value that the shareholders want from the company to leave it as just something that leadership will do on their own time in the evening. No, it needs to be a formal process. And I would even suggest that the board should be, or even the shareholders that they would, should be overseeing how the leadership is being educated.
Yeah, this has been a really good discussion and confirming our research that it's exactly the same, that everybody actually, it's not only the top management, everybody in the organization must understand at least the possibilities of new technologies. One more topic I would like to discuss before ending this great discussion is this hype related to the artificial intelligence. So basically it's something like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does it. So what do you think? Is it hype or not? Is it a real thing?
If you look at, so there's a variety of ways that you can look at that. Yes, there's a lot of hype around it, but I think it's not enough hype actually.
Okay.
Because what people don't understand is that they're familiar with technology that, for example, a group of programmers will program a new process, a new system, a new platform. And the speed in which that gets done is the speed in which that finite number of programmers that are dedicated to it can produce new code. But in the age of artificial intelligence, you can develop artificial intelligence engines that start coding themselves. That you can have machine learning systems set up to be reviewing and analyzing big data streams, and then talking to the artificial intelligence group, automated robots, to then code in a way that optimizes what they just learned a few seconds ago. Mm-hmm. So now you're having programmers that are artificial intelligence engines as well, being taught and supervised by other artificial intelligence engines. And then you build artificial intelligence engines above that are managers. And you can see that all of this can be done while you sleep. Yeah. And they're learning, and these, analytics on giant fast computers can be analyzing, terabytes of data in seconds, and then recommending changes to artificial intelligence engines that can code the change without you even knowing it. And so the system is being optimized, improved, developed, and innovated in your sleep. So when you start recognizing the full potential and power of layers of artificial intelligence, all designed to make things work faster and more optimally, you're like, a company that can put that together and do that right and test it long enough so that they're getting it right. And we see all kinds of examples of that. And then you look at companies that haven't even started that process, and that gap between the leaders and the laggers is going to grow incredibly fast. So that's why I say the hype around artificial intelligence may not even be enough. Okay. Because there's some companies that still don't recognize how fast things can change. Again, because it's not dependent on biological time or a programmer's 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. It can be automated, and you have artificial intelligence engines doing the programming.
Okay. I have one more question. So if you look like 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, so what kind of technologies you see coming? What top managers, how can they prepare for the future?
Right. So if you look at kind of everything that's in the hype curve right now, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, all and sensors and Internet of Things, we all hear about these every day, but the business impact, where the actual bottom line, your earnings statement that you share with the public on a quarterly basis, you will see the business impact in 3 years. Everybody needs to be starting right now. Everybody needs to be embracing it. But you will see, again, the actual earnings reports will be changed within 3 years. So everything you're hearing about today, they're all kind of a lot of them are insignificant on the earnings report, on the bottom line of the business today, but everybody's talking about it. 3 years from now, you'll see the business impact.
Yeah. So if just to summarize this discussion, it has been a really, really good, again, reminder that the business transformation that has gone through last years, it has been the starting point. And now, like you mentioned and explained what the hyper transformation means, we are now stepping a new era, and new technologies are coming, and this is truly interesting time for all of us. And I would like to thank you for a great discussion. All you watching this interview, it's just been a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you again, and bye bye.